Hello?
Hi, Tyler. This is Alyx Vance. It's nice to finally meet you.
Hi, Al.
Thanks for meeting me in my dad's lab because, well, we don't go to Ravenholm anymore, so.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
So, I appreciate that opening. That was just for, people to lose their minds. Today is very important to a lot of people. Obviously, we're not going to be talking about anything that's going to be happening within the next 24 hours. However, you're, the voice of one of, if not the most beloved character in my community and the audience that I have fostered over the years. So I just if you could just kind of,
Thank you.
if you could give a bit of an introduction to your professional career for people that may not know your other body of work aside from maybe Last of Us and the Half-Life series.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm a corn-fed Nebraska girl and came from a military family and fell into theater. And while I was doing Broadway, I happened to audition for this game, which, it's really interesting. When I walked into audition, I don't think I'd ever auditioned for a game before or had any affiliation with any kind of games, but there was a mock-up of her character, of the way she looked. And I swear, Tyler, when I looked at her, I thought, we're kindred. Either we're related or we are. It was almost as if they drew her for me. She had already been drawn, and so I put myself into her shoes, and that coupled with the extraordinary team that just made her sound like such a badass. I was blessed beyond measure to fall into a character and a universe and a career path that I adored so much because it brought me so many other things. So I thank God for that. And, it obviously introduced me to a whole other world, and a lot of my closest friends are in the gaming world now, and I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to be a part of it, to be a part of the community, and to have Alyx Vance as beloved as she is, someone who I feel I can connect to people through, or people feel connected to me through it, because I think she's awesome.
Yeah, that's really, really cool how you had never really auditioned for a video game before, and you ended up landing, a part like Alyx, which is affected.
Yeah, and she pops up in the strangest places for me too, because I do mostly television now, and there was one incident where I'd been on one show for 4 years, and it's Oprah Winfrey's Greenleaf, and one of my closest friends on the crew walked over to me one day with, it looked like somebody had died. And he looked at me like, Merle, are you Alyx Vance? And he almost cried. Why, yes, Teddy, I am. and he was over the moon about it. But it comes up in the strangest places, because you wouldn't know it just by talking to me or by my other body of work, because my other characters are so different. But I think Alyx is the closest to me, and she's the closest to my heart. And once people know that, they're like, "That's right, you are." It's fun.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, personally, Half-Life 2 was one of the first games I really had ever appreciated to the extent that I did, and it led to my career. And I mean, Gordon Freeman doesn't talk.
Wow.
Yeah, and I guess I do have a lot to thank to you specifically for your performance in the game to carry the character. I think that specifically without the ending that we left off with 12 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have this career. And that's completely based on your performance, 100%. So I guess a question then for you is...
That really moves me. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Do you remember recording... I know this was a while ago, but do you remember recording specifically the scene at the end of episode 2?
Oh, vividly, because it was improv.
What?
Yeah. It was... There's so many times where there was just a shorthand between all of us, and we really didn't have to say a lot to each other. It was like there was things that were on the page, and usually ran through was on the page very quickly, and then we would do kind of alternative stuff, and it was just kind of a moment where it was one of those times where they just let me roll with it, they let me go, and I was just in the moment, and it was. I think we all kind of had a moment of silence afterward because I really just poured my whole heart into it. And if I'm really honest, this is something I have never said on the record, but I didn't know where it came from when I said, "Don't leave me," because it was an improv. I think that it was in my subconscious little Disney girl when when the beast dies at the end of the beast, it says, "Don't leave me." I think that's where I got it from. I'm going to get into so much I hope that I don't get in copyright trouble, but it really was just like out of my spirit. And in the booth, because I was by myself in the booth and the guys were, at the console and all that, I just felt so solitary, alone, and alone, especially since I'd been listening to Robert Guillaume's voice for so long, and just the idea of in this world, Eli had been her blueprint. He had been her moral compass. He had been her her lifeline for so much. So when the world was in such chaos, when that lifeline suddenly is cut, and she's on her own, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to be alone in that universe without the person who taught her everything that she knows, without the only other person with whom she feels like she can completely, implicitly trust, because there's so many false, alliances, and people turn on each other because everybody's in a survival mode. And when that one person is taken so violently, it was just, don't leave me here. And that came out of my spirit, that came out of my heart, and again, the guys just let me flow with it, and we got something really, really special, I think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, you just saying "don't leave me" just then, like, shivers, because, that's, not only, I mean, the impact of the performance is incredibly important, and the quality of the acting that's being done there is, well, it's monumental, especially for the medium of video games, but then also ending an entire franchise on that moment for like 13 years. People grow up with that etched in the back of their minds, me, as an example. And, it's just, I do very much appreciate the amount of work that you've put into the character, because I don't know, I mean, you probably know this, but there was an actress that did the character before you for a very, very short period of time at Valve. And
No, I didn't.
There are some voice lines that leaked years ago of that version. And that version just sounds like stereotypical video game character number 1. And you sound like a human being that we connect with over the course of, 3 games, and now a 4th, hopefully. And Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude for your performance in that game.
Oh, thank you. Well, you hear how passionate I am, and I'm invested in the world, and I'm invested in who she is and what she's trying to do, because I think she's a good person. Now, what's interesting to me is what happens when your lifeline is taken from you. You know, when that one pure connection that you have is taken from you. How, yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody's imaginations over the past 12, 13 years have gone wild with, you know, did she go to the dark side? Did she become, you know, just like vengeful? Did she fight harder for justice, or did she herself turn into the boogeyman because of that? You know, because you think of so many things, they're like turning points in people's lives earlier in their lives, where they could have gone one way or they could have gone another way, or they could, and what kind of pain people walk with. And it has been really interesting to hear the theories of how that's affected her, and also in my own spirit, you know, how do I digest that, you know, that now that she is all alone, and what is Gordon to her, and who is the G-Man to her now, and who is, you know, Kleiner and all of them, and what does she do to Mossman? You know, all those things. I'm so curious about it, and I'm so curious about how she survives, and if she heals. You know, there's so much fertile ground there.
The first question that would work for this line then is, did you ever spend any time with Mark Laidlaw specifically through the development of any of these games?
Oh my gosh, yes. You know, we used to go, because wherever I was working, they would meet me. So they would come to New York, and, you know, we would go out, and I think I was in Rent when I first started on Broadway, and maybe like in 02, 03, something like that. And we would go out. I would take them to really obscure off-Broadway shows. I mean, they were such good sports. But yeah, we hung out, and we just fell in love. I love Mark, and he's still a good friend.
So,
like I'm passionate about Mark and his work.
Cool. So did you happen to read what he had published about 2 years ago about the Half-Life franchise?
Yes, I did, and I think I need to give it another read.
Well, I mean,
it's been a while.
Yeah, sure, sure, definitely. With you being so close to the character and likely having, I mean, did you ever have influence over the direction the character took? Like, did you ever discuss things like that with Mark?
Oh yeah, but you know what? What's interesting is that we were never in disagreement. If something, I remember there was one time when I think they wanted her to be a little. They'd written a bunch of things that were a little bit more like. She was really edgy, and she cursed a lot. And I was in the booth, and I said it a couple of times, a couple of the lines, and I was just like, I don't know, guys. And they were like, yeah, we don't like it. And but it's interesting. We try things. We throw paint at the wall or spaghetti at the wall, see if it sticks, and then move on. But we weren't precious about it. And we just went by gut instinct, and we were just never out of alignment. It was the most fluid and wonderful creative process I have ever had, ever, because it was always greater than I could have imagined, and then they were always delighted when I would go off script, you know, but I would always put it in the can the way that they wanted, and then I would, you know, move on and do that, put my own funk on it. But there was, if we ever did something and on one side of the table it didn't resonate, it was 100% reciprocated on the other side, and without even saying it. and sometimes we would just make those adjustments and not even say it. But then, like, later we talk about it and be like, oh, yeah, that's right. It was just, I mean, probably what you hear and why people are so in love with it is because there was so much pixie dust and fairy dust and excitement and creativity in the room.
So in the little piece that Laidlaw had published, there was an altercation between Alyx and Mossman, leading to Alyx shooting Mossman and killing her. In your opinion of the character, is that something that Alyx would be willing to do, given the current state of her character?
Yes. And I say that because I know and I understand the distress that she's in, and I think I also know and understand what how betrayed she feels. And when people are in grief and when people are struck before they know which end is up, they can do really out of character things. I think it would be out of character for her, but I can completely see her doing that.
Given the previous circumstances and the grieving process and all that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think she would beat herself up over it. I think she would regret it. I think it would be a really dark night of the soul for sure. But I could see her taking that action, being pushed hard enough.
Okay, wow. So...
Oh, you didn't expect that?
No, I didn't. So
what do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you on that at all. You're definitely far more...
No, but I want to hear. I'm interested.
Well, okay, so when I read it originally...
You're invested in the character.
When I read it originally, I thought that it seemed very out of character, especially given the fact that what did happen, it caused a lot of other issues going on for Gordon at the time. And I mean, like, up until that point, it seemed as if Alyx was a very no-nonsense, very level-headed, far more than, like, probably the most level-headed person out of everybody. Because Barney...
I agree.
And so, because of that, you know, like, well, I guess you did say, you know, it's out of character, but due to the grieving process, she is not in her right mind completely. And so...
Right.
I guess I don't I mean, I guess I do believe that... I'm not going to argue with Mark either, but it's a surprise to think that the character that you grow to be very close with over the course of, like, 3 games, and over the course of many years, you then hear, like, oh, well, you know, she is capable of murder, and she's capable of you know, taking out very, very strong grieving on another person, that even though they may deserve it, that action seems to color the character in a different way. But I mean,
I completely agree with you, but do you find Mossman to be full of integrity?
No. And it could be argued that it probably is not even an argument that Eli's death is at least somewhat at fault of Mossman giving away more information than she should.
Yeah. So what I find interesting about it is that, you know, it's just ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, right? And she has been, I think there's a certain thing that we as human beings go through when we have been pushed way outside of ourselves when something like massive happens. And, you know, I guess the process of finding yourself again, there are a lot of trips and falls, and that's part of being a human being. So I see out of her grief this almost justice seeking that she's looking for in that act. And like I said, I don't think that she would think of it going forward as the right thing. I think she would regret it. But I do think it could happen.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And in the process of trying to, I guess, make your spirit right side up and also kind of negotiate that in yourself, that's the interesting part of humanity, is when we learn and we grow. I mean, of course, you know, I don't advocate taking someone else's life at all, but I understand out of her humanity and her grief how she got to that place, or could get to that place. Let me say that. It's self-sufficient.
That's very interesting to think about. I mean, part of my job is to think very deeply on like the lore and the internal struggles of each of the characters and things. This question's kind of out of left field, but in your opinion, what do you think the relationship between Alyx and the G-Man is?
You know, this is something is outside of my realm of, it's outside of my lane. I'll say that. Because that's a bigger picture. That's a bigger universe. But instinctually, I think we all know, like if I just think of, you know, not on the human plane, but on a different plane, and maybe on the plane that he lives on, in the spiritual plane or whatever, that Alyx has a high calling on her life. And he sees that. And in the same way that I think the Vortigaunts are drawn to her to help her, he sees a power and a massive power within her, and a great way to utilize that. And whether it's, again, this is completely outside of my lane, but I think I see him and whatever machinations he's trying to make going, seeing her as almost like an allspark for whatever he's trying to do. And Alyx has something that they all need, and moving forward, she's kind of like the hands and feet. She's able to actually make things happen, and she has a gifting beyond what we can see. And I think that's why people love her, why people are drawn to her, and also why the G-Man is obsessed with her. And also why the Vortigaunts deign to put their power into her. And use it to save her and to protect her and to guide her. And they don't do that for everybody.
That's true.
So I think on some kind of other level, they know that about her. Again, way outside of my lane, but that's my opinion.
Okay. So
what do you think?
Well, I mean, that gets into some pretty crazy, baseless speculation. But I think that Alyx has been the key to everything this entire time. I think that Gordon has been a pawn in order for G-Man to be able to get closer to Alyx. And I also think that Gordon to G-Man is expendable and just kind of surprising to him. and that this has really just been G-Man's, I'm going to say, assignment or mission to harness the both physical and mental prowess that Alyx holds in order to be able to use it for himself or whomever he's working for. That's always been my theory of it.
I agree with that. I like that. You know what's funny? I was rehearsing for a Broadway show, I think maybe last year or something like that. I think it might be on my Instagram. I still took a picture. I was sitting at an outdoor cafe on 10th Avenue in New York, and Gordon Freeman walked by with a crowbar.
What?
It was so random. Like, and you know, it's not like a well-known, it's not like a Marvel or anything like that. It was Gordon Freeman with a crowbar, full outfit, walking down 10th Avenue. And I was like, Gordon! And he turned around, and I was it was Comic-Con was happening in New York. And I don't know why he built that outfit now. Like, you know, and it was a couple years ago before any kind of stuff, maybe like a year and a half ago, came out that they might be moving forward with this universe. But I could not believe it. I got up, ran. I was like, I have to take a picture of you. And I did post it. It was unbelievable. But how random is that?
That's
right?
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're running short on the allotted time. I obviously have many more questions for you, but I'll keep it brief.
Okay.
I guess my last question to close this very lovely interview out would be, what do you think, how do you think of the process of working with Valve as a whole? What is that like, and has it changed over the years? Like, what was Valve when you first started versus, let's say, Valve when you were working on episode 2? Or maybe even now, I don't know.
I had a pretty... It was a very... through the whole Half-Life process up until episode 2 was kind of the same. But I kind of felt like I was in my own bubble, you know, and I went up to Bellevue a couple of times and, you know, got to work in there, and it was really interesting. I remember the first time I walked into the Valve, and I was talking in the hall with the guys, and slowly just chairs started to roll out of their offices, and people were just like heads popping out because they heard my voice, but they had never seen me. And so, like, just to have the voice just randomly in the hall,
Yeah.
it was so charming. But, like, from all around, just heads just started popping out, like, you know, because you don't, when I'm just in my booth, I don't think about the hundreds of people who have to sit there and listen to my whiny voice, you know, hours on end, all day long. And I guess just to hear it in the hallway was really, really bizarre. But I will say this, working on Dota 2 was completely different because that was out, I mean, was that the second game that I did, maybe?
For Valve? That was the second character, I think.
Yeah, well, Legion Commander and Winter Wyvern.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark wrote those. So it was like, I don't know. I felt like I had a safety net because, like, well, they're not going to make me sound bad. They're not going to let me sound bad. But I was like, well, let me just go for it. And I guess people liked the characters, but that was a little outside of it, of me. But they were really, really supportive, and that was a different process as well. Because it wasn't like, you know, Alyx is a little more just human. Those are fantastical, those characters. And I guess, I don't know, I just always felt so supported. That's all I can say about it. But it was a little bit of shock for me to go from Alyx to Legion Commander. I will say that.
Yeah, very different characters. Did you? This is my final question. I'm sorry. Did you record anything? Did you record anything for Dota 2 after Laidlaw had retired?
Did I? I feel like I did something. There were like some. I think I did something else with Legion Commander after that.
Okay.
It's kind of vague to me right now. Yeah, I think I did. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Okay. I do know they had a different.
I don't know how those things manifest.
Yeah, maybe not, but I do know that they had a different actress for Legion Commander and Artifact. Was that because you were very busy with Greenleaf?
Oh, I don't know. I think I recorded some stuff with Legion Commander. If they, maybe they just didn't like it. I don't know. This is news to me.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not precious about it. I love Alyx, but Legion Commander, I was always like, I don't know.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna tell some people to get you back into Artifact because I don't like the other voice. But okay.
Really?
Yeah, it's not as good.
You don't like the new
No.
Legion Commander voice? Really?
Yeah. So Artifact came out.
In what way? Tell me.
So Artifact came out, and Legion Commander's like a really, really big part of it. The way that you played it felt far more human than the way they're playing it up in Artifact, which was very, like how you said, they're pushing the fantastical even further. And, you know, in the story, Legion Commander's trying to, like, take a whole country or whatever, and just the way that she communicates and the way that she speaks is very, like, everything is a command. There's just, it's like a one-note kind of a delivery, whereas in Dota 2, it seemed like there was some range to the performance. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, I mean,
that's very illuminating. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you very much.
See, I just did. I don't track these things.
Oh, that's fine. That's like my whole job to do this, but that, you know, I have to know everything.
I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the way that you are invested in the characters and the work, and the fact that you're amplifying it. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. But I mean, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day to speak with us. I'd love to be able to speak with you after you don't have to be so silent about whatever may be happening in the future, because I'm sure there's a lot of really cool stories that exist on some hypothetical thing that may or may not exist. But at some point in the future, I'd love to be able to talk with you about that, if that's okay.
Sure.
So,
I'd love talking to you, Tyler. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So for people that want to be able to follow up on the kinds of stuff that you're doing, where do you think I should be sending them? Your Instagram, your Twitter, what's the best way of checking up on you?
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm on all of them at Merle Dandridge. And, you know, you can catch up with me in the spring. I'll have another season of Greenleaf out and a season of a new HBO Max show called Flight Attendant. And, you know, there'll be some other things to keep up with me on. Mm-hmm. So, but what's really interesting is that I've always felt very disconnected from any kind of community that might like the character. So it's really, really neat to be able to talk about her like this because I don't really have a forum for that.
Well, you're always welcome to be able to discuss anything, you know, that you do. Doors always open on this end. So,
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're about 20 minutes away from a hypothetical thing that may or may not exist from being announced, and it was very timely for you to be able to sit down with me and talk about some stuff at Valve. Thank you very, very much. And
Indeed. It was nice to finally meet you.
You too. Hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye, Tyler.